Reclaimed is the podcast for the woman reclaiming her power through conversation, somatics, breathwork, plant medicine, and epic conversations. I am Kyla Gagnon, and this is Reclaimed. I want to start us with just a few moments of breath. If you're able to join me, please have a seat. If you're driving, you're already sitting. Please do not close your eyes. If you're not driving, go ahead and close your eyes down. Roll your shoulders up towards your ears. Hold them there for a moment. Take a big breath in and hold the breath. Hold the breath. Hold the shoulders up. Hold the breath. Good. Softly open your mouth and let the breath gently, slowly drop down. Drop the shoulders with it. All the way down. Leave the jaw open. Take a slow, full breath in to fill your belly and your chest. Exhale softly falls from the mouth. Again, in through the mouth, fill your belly, fill your chest. And slowly out the mouth. And again, breathing in, filling the belly, filling the chest. And out the mouth. Good. Again, breathing in through the mouth. And out the mouth. And again, in. And out. And in. And out. One more time in. And all the way out. Beautiful job. Hello, sweet friends. Welcome back to the conversation. So we're almost a year into the podcast, which is wild. Yay, go us. And I'm finding it comical that this is the first time I'm having this conversation. I guess it's like is it a conversation if you're just the only one talking? It's a one-sided conversation. Nonetheless, I'm finding it comical that this is the first time I've brought this conversation to the podcast. And anyway, so here we are. So regardless, we're here. We're here now. We're going to talk about breath work. And I want to talk about sort of two things, and maybe it'll grow into more, but definitely two things. I want to talk about the difference between pranayama and conscious connected breath work, or what I usually just refer to as breath work, why you would practice one over the other. And then on that same theme, I want to talk about breath work for nervous system regulation and emotional regulation, because both are really important. I talk about both of them a lot, and breath work, yes, helps with both. And I want to share with you how you can really utilize one over the other. Okay, so let's start here. Let's start with pranayama. Pranayama is the practice of consciously controlling your breath. And this plays then a significant role in supporting and regulating your nervous system. So this is where nervous system regulation comes in my opinion, more so in pranayama, both, but this is where we really practice and can build a really strong relationship with our nervous system and the regulation of it. So your nervous system can be categorized into two main parts. You've got your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system is responsible for your fight or flight response. And so that's sort of the there's perceived threat or perceived danger, and something is happening and we need to protect ourselves. Your sympathetic nervous system is what comes online when a situation like that is happening. Now, your parasympathetic is what governs your rest and digest, which is more everything is okay. We are safe. I can relax. And so breath work ultimately is acting like a bridge between these two systems, which helps to restore homeostasis or balance and really promote that overall sense of of okayness, of well-being, of regulation. When we experience stress, our breath often becomes shallow and often rapid as well. And this is an incredibly common way that people just breathe all the time because they've likely been in a state of stress in some way, shape, or form for most of their life. And that looks like a whole bunch of different things. And we can go into that maybe a little bit. Actually, you know what? Screw it. We're going to go into it now. So let's just say that you grew up in a home where there was a lot of chaos. Maybe you had tons of siblings or a huge family, and there was just always chaos, noise, activity, drama, blah, blah, all of, I'm thinking of like a big Italian or Greek family, which I've always desperately craved to be a part of because I'm an only child with a very small family. But maybe there was a lot of action. As a child, even as an adult, that puts your nervous system in a heightened state because you're like, okay, I've got to keep up what's going on. I need to pay attention. You're on high alert. So no, it's not dangerous stress, but it's still stress to your nervous system. Now, a situation where it might be more dangerous is if you grew up around substance abuse or actual physical or emotional abuse. Your system, very intuitively, would have picked up that that is not okay. And you, again, would have had to find ways to protect yourself, which might have been numbing out, might have been behaving a certain way to make sure that nothing bad happened to you. But those behaviors, those protection behaviors or defense mechanisms, only would have come online because your body was in a state of, uh-oh, something's wrong. And so again, if we have learned from a young age that that is quote unquote normal based on it being what we grew up with, that doesn't mean it's safe or good or okay, but it's become normal to our nervous system. We, generally speaking, stay in a heightened state if those experiences went on for a long time. What also can happen is because our nervous system got used to those circumstances and the experience of being in fight or flight most of the time, right? Maybe you had, I don't know, a high stress parent who came home from work and would just freak out. You would have learned to know that at 4:30, when so-and-so came home, things got crazy. And so you would have been in a protection mode. There's so many ways. Maybe you got bullied at school. So there was always this need to be on, or there was a teacher who wasn't nice or whatever. There's so many reasons our nervous systems learn to protect. And thank God for that. But that puts our nervous system in this relatively steady state of fight or flight. Maybe you're an athlete, a high achieving athlete or a high achieving student, and you always were like, go, 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 go. I need to perform. I need to do, I need to perform. You're in a state of fight or flight. So we can then almost seek that out. If we've gotten used to that as children and young adults, we can seek that out. Like if we grew up in a family where there was a lot of drama and relational drama, and maybe there was cheating or whatever it might be, you might find yourself, although you logically think, I want nothing to do with that, you might find yourself in situations where that's being mirrored. You might be dating people who are treating you really bad. There might be drama in your friend circle, drama at work that you just kind of feed into. Your nervous system is finding what's familiar. It's its comfort zone. And again, logically, we're like, I don't want that. That is not how I want to live. But it's the subconscious. It's not your conscious thinking. It's your subconscious that leads everything. And your subconscious is directly connected to your nervous system. So if your nervous system is used to being in a state of fight or flight, with your sympathetic nervous system turned all the way on, we've got some repatterning to do. And this is where breathwork comes in. So I digress. Let's go back. When we're in states of stress, our breathing can become really shallow and rapid. That triggers, like that awakens the central nervous system. It awakens the fight or flight. So that then leads to feelings of anxiety, of rapid heart rate, heightened alertness. We're on defense. We're like, okay, I'm ready. What's happening? And then breathwork really counters that response by introducing like deliberate, controlled, generally slower breathing patterns. So when we focus on a deep belly breath, a nice slow, deep belly breath, we're activating the parasympathetic nervous system. We're activating the information of like, oh, I'm actually okay here. And it signals to our body that it really is safe and it's time that we can just relax and recuperate. We're okay. So again, I talked about some techniques. There are several within breathwork. So you might hear of diaphragmatic breathwork. Again, that's really breathing into the belly, filling the diaphragm. You might have heard of box breathing or alternate nostril breathing or breath of fire. All of that is to cultivate mindfulness and to enhance emotional and a physical resilience. For example, diaphragmatic breath work, expanding the diaphragm rather than the chest, which would be that shallow, short, fast breath of the stress response. When we can access that diaphragmatic breath in the diaphragm and down into the belly, we're promoting a deeper air intake, like we're actually receiving more air, which, oxygen is literally what keeps you alive. And so it's, again, signaling like, oh, it's safe. There's enough here for me. I can breathe. I'm okay. I'm safe. And then that further leads to a decrease in stress hormones like cortisol, which then promotes an inner sense of calm. It calms the nervous system. It helps to regulate the nervous system. And it is shown that breathwork practices have long-term health benefits, long-term nervous system benefits. It lowers your heart rate, it lowers your blood pressure, reduces levels of anxiety, improves sleep, enhances your overall resilience to stress. This is what we need. We live in a world that will always present us with stress. And so what are we going to do to navigate it? The physiological response supports mental clarity and emotional regulation, which then allows us to approach challenges that life will throw at us from a much more grounded space. Right? There's that it's the reality of really quickly reacting to a situation, which generally is never the way we actually want to behave, versus regulating yourself, moving forward from a place of grounded connection to self and responding from a really good place. So breathwork isn't just to reduce stress. It can also really enhance and expand our emotional awareness. It can bring energy. We can shift our mood. We can shift our state. We can change our energy by tuning into our breath. When we become more attuned to our emotional reactions and our triggers, coming back to that reaction versus responding, we take our power back, which is my whole thing, like helping women reclaim their power. This is it. When you're in a situation and you react in a way, I say react, I have a vision that comes to my mind and it's like a total spaz, just spazzing, freaking out, the reaction. When you react, you're not coming from your center. You're not coming from your place of power. You're coming from your place of disconnection and disempowerment and, quite honestly, like childish behavior. Whereas when we can tune in and really start to gain connection, and I'll use the word control, I don't really love that word, over our emotional responses or reactions or triggers, we get to respond to situations from a place of like, I got this and it's okay. And I'm not going to amplify the situation by reacting like that. I'm just simply going to respond from a place of from center, from my personal power. So breathwork is an epic tool for regulating your nervous system. And this is why I want to invite you to practice more pranayama breathwork. And I have, right now there's a library of, I think there's 60 different practices inside of Breathe with Kyla. And I'm running Catch Your Breath, which is a 5-day free breath experience in Facebook starting today, if you're listening to this on December 16th. And it's this is it. It's practicing these pranayama practices to begin a relationship with our nervous system, to begin practicing regulating our nervous system. Now, the difference, at least the way I see it, feel it, know it, teach it, the difference between pranayama practices and conscious connected practices. If you've been to a conscious connected breathwork session with me or with anyone else, you know that they are generally about an hour in length. They are through an open mouth. You are lying down and you're breathing quite a full breath. It's a vibrant, full inhale and a soft, gentle, surrendered exhale. And what this invites us into is our subconscious landscape, our internal landscape. And our subconscious is where, you've heard me say this before, literally everything lives. All of our stories, our memories, our beliefs, our traumas, our limitations, our ideas, our fears, our everything lives within our subconscious. So when we logically say, I don't want to live in a family, or I don't want to have a relationship that's dramatic and overwhelming, if your subconscious is still connected to the beliefs, that's what I get. This is what's normal. This is what's comfortable. It will always win out. Your subconscious, although invisible, is incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. It runs the show. So we need to build a relationship with our subconscious, with our emotional body, with the parts of us that live in the depth of our being. We live in a world where most people are really living solely from their head, from logical, from thinking, from planning, from doing, really in the head. And we're disconnected from the body. We're disconnected from the information our body has. We're disconnected from our emotions. We're disconnected from our intuition. We're disconnected. And so coming home through a conscious connected breathwork practice to those places deep within, in my personal lived experience, has been the most transformational and empowering thing I have ever done for myself. Again, if you know my story, you know how disconnected I was after the loss of my mom. I've been saying 18 years, but actually it was 16. I found breathwork. It would have been 16 years later. Nonetheless, far too long to be disconnected from my emotions, my feelings, my body. So when we do a conscious connected breathwork practice, and we go into the depth of our being, we go into the subconscious spaces in the body, we go into the old beliefs, the old stories, the memories. And for some people, that is a really beautiful experience. There's a lot of joy. There's a lot of happiness. There's a super strong sense of love that's really common to come out of a practice feeling so connected to love, like loving everything. It's this overall universal feeling of love. And sometimes it's heavy. Sometimes it's moving through old stories and memories of grief and behaviors that we know are potentially harming us or others. It's coming to terms with parts of ourselves that we have maybe not acknowledged, but that are really running the show. And I'm just not sure, you'd have to really prove me otherwise, that there's a way to get to those parts without somatic work, without this work, without breath work. Tapping is a beautiful way to get there as well. I still don't feel the same level of depth that I do with breath work. And so there's one thing to be someone who has a regulated nervous system. And then there's another to be someone who can regulate, be with, honor, express their emotions. And the reason that I feel so strongly about learning how to do this, coming back to that responding versus reacting, when we get really in tune with the depth of our emotions and the depth of our subconscious, you can't help but remember how human you are. And when you remember how human you are, you remember all of the shit you've done. You come to terms with, yeah, I've done that. I've harmed someone. I've said something I didn't mean. I've hurt someone's feelings. I disrespected someone. I misbehaved. I did a thing that I wish I didn't do, but I did. We're all human. And so that, I find, the reason I'm saying this is when we come into contact with another human who mistreats us, perhaps a friend, a lover, someone, a family member who has done wrong by us, or that we perceive they've done wrong, we have the human experience. We have the felt lived experience, the knowing of what it feels like in the big feel. So we can acknowledge, like, I am human too. We can see the human in others. That doesn't mean everything is okay and we let them just walk all over us, but it means I see you. Okay. it ends up with less judgment, more compassion. And again, it doesn't mean that it's okay. It doesn't mean that you let them continue, but it offers space for forgiveness for their unknowing. Forgiveness for them being a human and not knowing differently. And then, then the conversation of boundaries comes up and you need to set what you need to set. But when we know ourselves to the depth that breathwork brings us, we can see others for their depth. And it's so fucking beautiful. And this is what brings people together. This is what begins the break of the division that is going on in our world, the separation. This is what reminds us that we are all the same. We are all the same. But if we don't have a relationship with our depth, it's going to be impossible to offer and experience depth with anyone or anything else. And so subconscious work is the work. It is so important. It is so important. And when we become intimately connected to these parts of ourselves that live within, we get to see where our patterns come from, then we get to choose differently. When we see where a pattern or behavior roots from, and we can acknowledge that perhaps the story that I've been living off of, I'll just use an example that I've heard recently. I'm always going to struggle. There's just never enough money. Whose story was that? Was that your grandma's? Was that your mother's? Was that your father's? Was that your uncle's? Who did you hear when you were a child constantly live that story? That's not your story. You just took it on as an example. And so when we know that, oh my God, that was never even mine, then we get to start making change. But if we don't know the root of our behaviors or of our stories, we're disempowered. And our subconscious will lead the way. And so reclaiming your power is regulating your nervous system, but it's also becoming really familiar and really clear with your inner landscape, with your subconscious, with the stories, with the beliefs that you've been living, and realizing that that might not be mine. And I can actually do that differently. That's power. That's power. So again, I'm running Catch Your Breath inside of Facebook this week, December 16th to 20th. If you're catching this after that date, you can actually still join it. It's all replayed. It's all just living inside of my private Facebook group. So I'll link that below. Come join us. Come join. Breathe with me every day. We're going to breathe every day this week together, maybe 15 minutes. We're going to go into emotions, including anger and shame, and just low vibration, grief. We're going to look at expansion and abundance and self-sabotage and all of these very common, highly requested practices. And we're going to begin the practice of regulating our nervous system, getting familiar with our subconscious, getting familiar with who we are at the depth. So again, join us. It's there. Before I sign off here, I will just say as we come close to the end of the year, the doors to Breathe with Kyla they're open. Come join us. We breathe twice a month together, conscious connected breathwork journeys twice a month. Then you have access to your whole library of practices, beautiful community, guest educators every month. It's a really beautiful, fun space to be. And then I'm also opening the doors to the mastermind, the first 100K mastermind. If you want to join us in January, this is a business mastermind for those who are in the early stages of business. Maybe you've just launched a business, or you're just in the creation of, I think I want to. It's for women who are building businesses and working up to your first 100K. And we are rooting it in somatics. We are rooting it in breathwork. You get full access to the breathwork membership so that when you do come up against a limitation, a resistance, a fear, a block, that you have practices to go to. This is a game changer. Heart-led business owners working from a place of deep connection to their inner landscape is going to change the whole game. I'll put that link in the show notes. Price does increase in the new year, so join us before the end of 2024 and you'll get in at $197 a month. I love you so much. Details are all below. Have a beautiful day.